I'm going to show you how to do the rough drawing here for your CO2 project. The first thing you need to remember is that one of these blocks is equal to 1/4 of an inch. And I always write this down here just to remind myself of that. Again, one block on this grid means 1/4 of an inch. Now, if you took a ruler, it actually wouldn't be 1/4 of an inch. It would actually be less than that. But what I am going to do is I'm first going to decide whether or not, how long my car needs to be. Now, if I want my car to be, let's say, 10 inches, as I did on my sample, I'm going to count 4 blocks to represent an inch. Of course, each block is 1/4 of an inch, so each block is 1/4. So each set of 4 blocks will be an inch. So there's 4 blocks, there's 8 blocks, and so on and so forth. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And notice how I count from the back. You never want to cut anything off of the front of the car. Or excuse me, you never want to cut anything off the back of the car. If you cut off of the back of the car, of course your engine compartment's going to be gone, and that's not going to be a good thing. So once I find my 10 inches from the back, I'm going to make a straight line here. I'm going to use a straight edge to line myself up here with both the top and the side view, and I'm just going to make a nice straight line like that. Now what that allows me to do is to just very quickly make an X, telling me that I don't need to worry about the front of this blank. And if you remember, the blank that you're going to be getting is going to be about 12 inches. Here's a sample of it right here. You see it's going to be about 12 inches. It's a lot bigger than this scale, obviously, but most people cut this down to save on some weight. So now I'm going to decide on where I want my axles to be. Now, of course, you've already done your thumbnail sketches, so you have narrowed down with your instructor an idea of what you want your car to look like. So, and by the way, you can always change this. If you do this rough drawing and you realize, you know what, I don't want to do this design anymore, I'm going to scrap it and go on to something else, you can do that. But what I'm going to do is just take a design just out of my head that I've used in the past, and I'm going to start with the side view. I want to first decide on where to put my axle holes. I'm going to put one axle hole right here. I'm going to put one axle hole right here, just to kind of give it a kind of a balanced look. And if you zoom in here, you're going to notice that your lines are actually, or excuse me, your dots are actually one line above that bottom part. And we'll look at the front here. And the reason for that is I want my axle holes to be 1/4 inch on center from the actual bottom of the car, or the bottom of the blank that you're going to make your car out of. And the reason for that is I found that works best when you actually go to install your axles and your wheels. Now that I've drawn it on the side view, I'm going to use my straight edge once again to extend that mark up to the top view, and do the same thing in the back, here and here. And the reason for that is that way I know where the axles will stick out of the side of the car when I actually go to draw the top. So very quickly, and again, this is just a sample, I'm going to go ahead and trace what I believe is the best design for my particular car. Notice I did not go into this engine compartment here. I'll take a little bit off the side here, or off the bottom rather. And then one technique you want to be careful of, I always actually start at the axles themselves, front and back. And I'm going to go ahead and make my drawing from those points. The reason for this, again, is because of the fact that I always have students with a difficult time keeping their car the minimum width at the rear axles and the front axles. So I'm going to do that. Now I'll get something that looks just like that. Again, this is just an example. This is not the right way to do it. This is just an example. Now that I've got my two outlines here, you can, if you want, you can kind of shade in the part of the car that's going to be the waste. In other words, this is going to be the part that's cut off, just to kind of give you a little bit better look inside there as to what the outline of the car is going to look like. Makes it stand out a little more. You can do that to the rest of your design. And then what I always do is I double check. If you remember the rules in the design envelope, your car between the axles cannot be more than a ½ inch wide, or excuse me, it cannot be less than a ½ inch wide. So because of that, what I'm going to do is make sure that I have a 2-block minimum width. I'm going to erase a little bit there, and like that. Now again, this is the rough sketch, so it's not something that I'm going to be using for a template, but nonetheless, it's something that is going to start giving me scale. So when your instructor looks at this, he can see that this is a 10-inch car, and then can start to look at all of these little symbols and look at your drawing as far as how you've drawn it with the block. That way, some suggestions can be made, and then at that point, when you get this back and evaluated, you can move on to your full-scale drawing for the template.